Most people spend their entire lives chasing results without ever defining the reason behind them, and that's why they burn out, lose direction, and quit when it matters most. You wake up every day with goals in your mind, things you want to achieve, targets you want to hit, and a version of yourself you want it to become, but without a clear reason behind it. All of that energy fades the moment things get difficult. The difference between those who keep going and those who stop is not talent, not luck, and not even opportunity. It is clarity. When you understand why you do what you do, you stop relying on motivation and start relying on purpose. Motivation is temporary. It comes and goes based on how you feel, but purpose stays. Purpose anchors you when your emotions try to pull you away from your path. When your why is weak, distractions become powerful. Suddenly, everything feels more important than the work you need to do. You procrastinate, you delay, you justify your inaction because there is nothing strong enough pulling you forward. But when your why is clear, distractions lose their power. You don't need to force discipline because your purpose creates it naturally. You begin to say no to things that don't align with where you are going, not because someone told you to, but because you understand what is at stake. Your why is not about impressing others or proving something to the world. It is deeply personal. It is the reason that keeps you moving when no one is watching, when there is no applause, when progress feels invisible. It is what fuels you during the quiet moments when quitting feels easier than continuing. Without it, every challenge feels heavier, every setback feels more painful, and every obstacle feels like a reason to stop. With it, those same challenges become part of the journey, something you expect and embrace. Too many people focus only on what they want. They want success, money, recognition, freedom, but they never stop to ask themselves why those things matter. And without that understanding, even if they achieve those things, it feels empty. Because success without meaning is not fulfillment. It is just noise. When you start with your why, everything changes. Your actions become intentional, your time becomes valuable, and your energy is directed towards something that actually matters. Clarity does not come instantly. It requires reflection, honesty, and sometimes uncomfortable truth. You have to ask yourself questions that most people avoid. Why do I want this life? Why does this goal matter to me? What am I willing to sacrifice for it? The answers to these questions shape your direction. They define your standards. They create a foundation that cannot easily be shaken. When you know your why, you stop comparing your journey to others. You stop chasing paths that were never meant for you. You stop measuring your worth based on someone else's timeline. Instead, you move with confidence because you understand that your path is yours alone. You begin to trust the process because you know where it is leading you. Your why also evolves as you grow. What drives you today may not be the same thing that drives you tomorrow, and that is not a weakness, it is growth. The key is to remain connected to it, to continuously realign your actions with your purpose. Because the moment you lose sight of it, you begin to drift. Everything starts with your why. It shapes your decisions, your habits, and your identity. It determines whether you stop or keep going. It decides whether you settle or push forward. And once you truly understand it, you don't need external pressure to move, because the reason within you becomes stronger than any obstacle in front of you. The moment you stop blaming everything outside of you is the exact moment your life begins to change, because ownership is the starting point of all real progress. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they give their power away. They point at circumstances, at other people, at timing, at luck, and in doing so, they unconsciously decide that their life is controlled by something outside of them. It feels easier in the moment because it removes pressure, but it also removes control. When everything is someone else's fault, nothing is your responsibility, and when nothing is your responsibility, nothing changes. Taking responsibility is not about carrying guilt or shame. It is about reclaiming control. It means you accept that where you are right now is a result of your decisions, your habits, and your responses. That realization is uncomfortable because it forces you to confront the truth, but it is also powerful because it puts you back in the driver's seat. You stop waiting for things to get better and start making them better. Every day you are making choices, even when you think you are not. Choosing to delay, choosing to ignore, choosing to stay comfortable, those are all decisions. And each decision shapes your future. When you take responsibility, you begin to see those choices clearly. you realize that small actions repeated daily are either building your life or breaking it. There is no neutral ground. You're either moving forward or staying stuck. Blame is a distraction. It keeps you focused on what you cannot control instead of what you can. You cannot control other people's actions. You cannot control unexpected challenges. You cannot control every outcome, but you can control how you respond. That response is where your power lives. It is in your mindset, your effort, your discipline, and your willingness to adapt. Responsibility also means holding yourself accountable when no one else is watching. It means doing the work even when it is inconvenient. It means following through on the promises you make to yourself, because every time you break those promises, you weaken your self-trust, and every time you keep them, you strengthen it. Over time, that self-trust becomes the foundation of your confidence. It is easy to take responsibility when things are going well. It is much harder when things fall apart, when you fail, when you make mistakes, when you face setbacks. The instinct is to look outward for reasons. But growth happens when you look inward, not to criticize yourself, but to understand what you can do differently. That shift in perspective turns failure into feedback. It turns obstacles into lessons. You begin to realize that no experience is wasted if you choose to learn from it. Every mistake becomes a stepping stone instead of a stopping point. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to grow stronger. And instead of feeling like life is happening to you, you start to feel like you are shaping it. Taking responsibility also changes the way you see time. You stop saying someday and start saying now. You stop waiting for the perfect moment because you understand that it does not exist. The only moment you truly have is the one you are in, and what you do with it determines everything that comes next. There's a certain freedom that comes with responsibility. It may seem like a burden first, but it is actually the opposite. Because when you take ownership of your life, you are no longer dependent on external conditions to move forward. You create your own momentum. You set your own standards. You decide who you become. Your life reflects what you are willing to take responsibility for. Not what you say, not what you wish for, but what you consistently own and act upon. And when you fully embrace that, excuses lose their place, blame disappears, and progress becomes inevitable. You don't become who you want by what you say once, you become it by what you repeat daily, because identity is not declared, it is built through consistent action over time. Every single day, you are casting votes for the person you are becoming. Not through big dramatic moments, but through small, repeated actions that seem insignificant in the moment. People often wait for a breakthrough, a sudden change that will transform everything overnight. But that is not how identity works. Identity is quiet. It is built in the unseen moments, in the decisions no one notices, in the discipline you show when there is no pressure to perform. When you act in alignment with who you want to become, even in small ways, you begin to shift how you see yourself. You don't need external validation because your actions become your proof. You show up when it is inconvenient, you follow through when it is difficult, and over time, you start to trust yourself. That trust becomes confidence, not the loud kind that seeks attention, but the quiet kind that is rooted in evidence. Inconsistency, on the other hand, creates doubt. When you start something and stop, when you commit and then break that commitment, you send a message to yourself that your word does not matter. It weakens your sense of identity. You begin to question your ability, not because you lack potential, but because your actions are not reinforcing it. The gap between who you say you are and what you do becomes wider. Consistency closes that gap. It aligns your intentions with your behavior. It turns effort into habit and habit into identity. The more you repeat an action, the more natural it becomes until it no longer feels like something you have to force. It becomes part of who you are. You don't think about it, you just do it. That is when real transformation happens. It is important to understand that consistency is not about perfection. You will have days where you fall short, where you miss the mark, where things don't go as planned. That is part of the process. What matters is that you return. You don't let one misstep turn into a pattern of quitting. You get back on track again and again because you understand that identity is shaped over time, not in a single moment. There is power in repetition. The more you do something, the more you reinforce the belief that this is who you are. If you consistently show up, you become someone who shows up. If you consistently put in effort, you become someone who works hard. These are not labels you give yourself. They are identities you earn through action. Most people underestimate how much progress can be made through small, consistent steps. They look for quick results and get discouraged when they don't see immediate change. But consistency works differently. It compounds. The effort you put in today may not show results immediately, but over time it builds on itself. What once felt difficult becomes manageable. What once felt impossible becomes achievable. Your environment, your routine, and your mindset all play a role in maintaining consistency. You have to create conditions that support the person you want to become. That means removing distractions, setting clear priorities, and making it easier to do the right thing than the wrong thing, because the easier it is to stay consistent, the more likely you are to sustain it. Identity is not something you find, it is something you build. And you build it through what you do repeatedly, not occasionally, not when you feel like it, but consistently. Every action you take is shaping you, whether you realize it or not. The question is not whether you are building an identity, the question is which identity you are building through your daily action. Everything you want exists just outside your comfort zone. And the reason most people never reach it is because they mistake discomfort for danger instead of recognizing it as the signal that growth is happening. Discomfort has a way of making you question everything. The moment things feel uncertain, challenging, or unfamiliar, your instinct is to pull back, to return to what feels safe and predictable. That instinct is natural, but it is also limiting, because the life you want is not built in comfort. It is built in the moments where you choose to move forward despite the resistance you feel. When something feels uncomfortable, it is often because you are stepping into something new. Your mind does not have a reference point, your habits are being stretched, and your identity is being challenged. That tension is not a sign that you are on the wrong path. It is a sign that you are expanding beyond who you used to be. Growth requires that expansion. It requires you to let go of familiarity and step into uncertainty. Most people avoid discomfort because they associate it with failure or rejection. They fear making mistakes, being judged, or not being good enough. So they stay where they are, convincing themselves that they will move when they feel ready. But readiness is not something that comes before action. It is something that is built through action. You become ready by doing the very thing that makes you uncomfortable. There is a difference between pain that harms you and discomfort that grows you. Harm pulls you backward, it drains you, it breaks you down in a way that serves no purpose. Growth, on the other hand, challenges you in a way that builds strength. It pushes you to think differently, act differently, and become different. Learning to recognize that difference is essential. Because if you treat all discomfort as something to avoid, you will also avoid the very experiences that could transform your life. Discomfort also builds resilience. Every time you face something difficult and choose to continue, you strengthen your ability to handle challenges. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. What once felt impossible becomes something you approach with confidence. That shift does not happen overnight. It happens through repeated exposure to situations that test you. When you begin to embrace discomfort, your perspective changes. You stop asking how you can avoid challenges and start asking what you can learn from them. You become curious instead of fearful. You lean into situations that stretch you because you understand that they are shaping you into someone stronger and more capable. It is easy to stay in environments where everything feels familiar, where you know what to expect and how to respond. But those environments rarely demand growth. They keep you at the same level, repeating the same patterns, producing the same results. If you want something different, you have to be willing to enter spaces that challenge you. Spaces where you do not have all the answers, where you have to adapt and evolve. Progress is not comfortable. It requires effort, patience, and a willingness to face uncertainty. There will be moments where you doubt yourself, where you question whether it is worth it. In those moments, it is important to remember that discomfort is temporary, but growth is lasting. The pain of staying the same is often greater than the discomfort of change. You do not need to eliminate fear to move forward. You need to move forward despite it. Courage is not the absence of discomfort, it is the decision to act in its presence. And every time you make that decision, you expand your limits. You redefine what is possible for you. The path to becoming your best self is not found in ease. It is found in challenge, in the moments that test you, stretch you, and push you beyond what feels comfortable. Those moments are not obstacles, they are opportunities, signals that you are growing, evolving, and stepping into a version of yourself that you could not access by staying where you are with the people you spend the most time with. Silently shape your standards, your mindset, and your future, which means your environment is either building you or breaking you every single day. You may believe that your success is purely based on your individual effort, your discipline, and your mindset, but there is another force working in the background at all times, and that is the people around you. Whether you realize it or not, you absorb the attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors of those you consistently interact with. It happens subtly over time through conversations, through shared habits, and through what becomes normal in your environment. When you surround yourself with people who settle, who complain, who avoid responsibility, it becomes easier for you to do the same. Not because you lack ambition, but because your environment starts to redefine what is acceptable. You begin to lower your standards without even noticing. What once felt like underperformance starts to feel normal. And that shift is dangerous because it does not happen all at once, it happens gradually. On the other hand, when you place yourself around people who are driven, who challenge themselves, who take ownership of their lives, something changes within you. Their mindset influences yours. Their discipline raises your expectations. Their actions push you to step up. You begin to see what is possible not through theory, but through real examples. And that exposure expands your thinking. The right people do not just support you, they challenge you. They do not let you stay comfortable when they know you are capable of more. They hold you accountable. Not in a way that feels controlling, but in a way that encourages growth. They ask you questions that make you think deeper. They push you to confront the gaps between where you are and where you want to be. It is important to understand that surrounding yourself with the right people is not about cutting everyone off or isolating yourself. It is about being intentional. It is about choosing who you allow to influence your thinking, your habits, and your direction. You can care about people and still recognize that not every environment is aligned with your growth. Energy matters more than you think. Some people drain it, leaving you feeling unmotivated and stuck. Others add to it, leaving you feeling inspired and focused. Paying attention to how you feel after spending time with certain individuals can reveal a lot. It shows you whether that connection is helping you grow or holding you back. Growth also requires exposure to different perspectives. When you are surrounded by people who think bigger, who see opportunities where others see obstacles, it changes the way you approach challenges. You stop limiting yourself based on your current circumstances and start expanding your vision of what is possible. It is not always easy to change your environment. Sometimes it means stepping into unfamiliar spaces, meeting new people, and putting yourself in situations where you do not immediately feel comfortable. But just like growth requires discomfort, it also requires alignment. You have to place yourself where growth is expected, not where it is optional. You also become part of someone else's environment. The same way others influence you, you influence them. That means you have a responsibility to bring value, to bring the right energy, and to contribute positively to the people around you. It is not just about what you receive, it is about what you give. Over time, your circle shapes your identity. The conversations you have, the standards you accept, and the behaviors you normalize all contribute to who you become. If you are intentional about who you surround yourself with, you create an environment that naturally pushes you forward. You do not rise in isolation. You rise in alignment with the people around you. And when you choose that alignment carefully, you create a space where growth is not forced, it is inevitable. People overestimate what they can achieve in a short time and underestimate what they can build over years, which is why they quit too early and never experience the true power of long-term consistency. We live in a world that rewards speed, quick results, instant feedback, fast success. It creates the illusion that if something is not happening quickly, it is not working. That belief causes people to abandon paths that could have led to something meaningful simply because the results were not immediate. Playing the long game requires a different mindset. It requires patience, trust, and the ability to stay committed even when progress feels invisible. The long game is not about waiting without action. It is about taking consistent action without immediate reward. It is about understanding that the work you do today may not show results tomorrow, but it is still moving you forward. Every effort compounds over time. Skills develop, habits strengthen, and opportunities begin to appear, not because of luck, but because of sustained effort. When you focus only on short-term outcomes, you become reactive. You chase quick wins, you look for shortcuts, and you measure success based on immediate results. That approach may bring temporary satisfaction, but it rarely leads to lasting growth. The long game shifts your focus. It encourages you to think beyond today, beyond this week, beyond this moment. It forces you to ask a different question, not what works now, but what will matter over time. There is a certain discipline required to stay committed when you are not seeing instant results. Doubt begins to creep in. You start questioning whether your efforts are worth it. You compare yourself to others who seem to be moving faster. In those moments, it is easy to change direction, to start something new, to look for something that promises quicker results. But every time you do that, you reset your progress. You trade depth for speed, and in doing so, you limit your potential. The long game rewards those who are willing to stay focused. It favors those who can delay gratification and continue building even when no one is watching. Over time, the gap between those who stay consistent and those who quit becomes significant. What once looked like slow progress begins to accelerate. What once felt like effort begins to feel natural. That is the power of compounding. You begin to realize that success is not a single moment, it is a series of small decisions made consistently over time. It is the result of showing up when it is inconvenient, of doing the work when it is repetitive, of continuing when it feels like nothing is changing. Those moments do not feel significant on their own, but together they create momentum. Playing the long game also changes how you handle failure. Instead of seeing it as an endpoint, you see it as part of the process. You understand that setbacks are not interruptions, they are lessons. They provide feedback, they reveal weaknesses, and they give you an opportunity to adjust. When you are focused on the long term, a single failure does not define you. It becomes one step in a much larger journey. Patience is often misunderstood as passivity, but in reality it is active. It is the ability to keep going without immediate validation. It is the strength to trust your process even when the outcome is not yet visible. It is choosing to invest in something that will take time to grow. The long game requires clarity. You need to know what you are building and why it matters. Without that clarity, it becomes difficult to stay committed. But when you understand your direction, you are less likely to be distracted by short-term noise. You stay grounded in your purpose. Time will pass regardless of what you do. The question is whether you will use it intentionally, whether you will invest it in something that grows or spend it on things that fade. The long game is about making that choice consistently, about aligning your actions with your future, and about understanding that the greatest rewards come to those who are willing to stay the course long enough to earn them.